Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. I'm your host, Mari Reesberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Anna Holtzman, visibility coach and podcast host. Please enjoy Anna Holtzman. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. Today I'm chatting with Anna Holtzman, visibility coach and podcast host. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Mari. It's such a delight to see you.
It is so exciting to have you join me today for our conversation. I can't wait to dive in. But before we get there, why don't you take a couple of minutes and let our listeners know a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Yes. So, the current version of me, I
Yes.
say, because I am the queen of pivots, and I'll get into that in a
Ooh.
moment. But I am a visibility coach for sensitive creatives and entrepreneurs.
Oh,
I help folks who have a message that they want to bring out there into the world and who also, along with their passion to express that message, also have some fear of visibility, fear of putting themselves out there. It's something that I can deeply relate to the tension between those two things. And so I love supporting these folks in getting their work out into the world. And I have the reason I said this is the current version of me is because it's sort of a culmination of many different professional identities that I've had along the way, starting with assistant architect. I studied architecture in college, and I was actually an assistant model maker for architects when I first got out of school. That was a long time ago now. I segued from there into publishing. I was an editor at an architectural magazine, and did editing and writing for other design magazines for a while. And then I segued with took that storytelling set of skills and became a filmmaker and editor and wound up editing reality TV shows for a full decade.
oh my goodness.
Yes, and the humorous version of the story is that working in the reality TV field for a decade drove me into therapy. It's not really accurate. There were, I went into therapy for the reasons that people do, and I found it really fascinating. And I eventually decided that I wanted to get into that realm myself, and I got certified as a coach. I eventually went back to grad school and got my degree and became a licensed therapist. And I've had like several different iterations with that work. 5 years of it, I've spent helping folks recover from chronic pain symptoms, stress related chronic pain symptoms, because I experienced my own recovery from chronic migraine using tools of nervous system regulation and emotional expression and all of these mind body tools that have been so life changing. And as I was building my therapy and coaching businesses and having to put myself out there to market myself, I noticed that every time I would step into visibility, it would trigger these kind of like pre migraine attack symptoms. And I was like, oh my goodness, visibility really activates my nervous system. And
Mhm.
I've got tools for that. And I started to apply them to that, and it was pretty magical. And so that has become the focus of what I help folks with now.
Oh my goodness, what a beautiful journey and so multifaceted. The multi-creative in you speaks to the multi-creative in me. I
Yes.
love all of it.
Yeah.
My
Yeah. I've
goodness.
always got to be working with what's really alive in me.
Yes, I feel that absolutely. I'm just can't wait to ask all the questions. And so I'm going to dive right in.
Please do.
When you think of creativity, what does it mean to you to be creative?
Mm. I have to say that meeting you and learning, your framework for creativity has influenced my
Oh,
percent. It's like it's one of the many influences in how I think about creativity. But I really equate creativity with life energy. And that might, be a term that some listeners will relate to and that other listeners might think is like, well, what does that even mean, life energy? Um, but this is something that life energy is something that I really started thinking and talking about more as I went through this recovery from chronic migraine, because when you are caught in like the matrix of the chronic symptom cycle, there's so much tension in your body, in your nervous system. Everything is just in this um self-protection mode.
mm-hmm.
You've got your walls up metaphorically, but also, there's tension in your physical muscles of your body. You're anticipating symptoms, and the anticipation is bringing on more stress. The stress is triggering more symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a tight place. And if you imagine that life energy is like moving through our body, whether it's in the form of like our blood moving through our blood vessels or oxygen moving through our body, or for those who have tuned into what this feels like there's electricity running through our
Mm-hmm.
body. It's what animates us, right? And when we are so contracted and constricted around this life energy, it can feel like our energy is trapped inside of us.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, whether you relate to this, the words I'm using or not, I think we all know what it feels like to feel like our energy is stuck and trapped inside of us.
Mm-hmm.
And as I began to learn how to work with my nervous system, how to support it instead of fighting against it, how to help my nervous system feel safe instead of like running from it in my own fear or trying to
Mm-hmm.
battle it because I was afraid, things started to soften up energetically, physically. The symptoms
Mm-hmm.
started to decrease. And what emerged was energy. And for me, it was often in the form of creativity, just like, suddenly these like surges of like, oh, I have projects I want to do. I have, things I want to express. And I was seeing the very same thing happen with the clients that I was working with
Mm-hmm.
as they were learning to be kinder to themselves, to be supportive of their own bodies and nervous systems instead of like feeling like you're at war with yourself. They too were starting to soften and open, and this creative energy would emerge, sometimes in the form of something we more traditionally think of as creative. For example, one of these clients who had never written, like published anything in her life before, she wrote a book and published it during the time of our working together, which was so
Wow.
exciting and beautiful to witness and to support. Um, Another client who thought that they would never ever have kids because, and there are many people who choose not to have kids. This person felt that they were restricted from that even being a
Mm-hmm.
choice because of how constricted they felt with
Mm-hmm.
anxiety and tension and symptoms. Um, I've seen this client through the birth of their second child. And yeah, it's just like creativity can come forth in many ways. And for me, it's an expression of life energy.
I love that. I so resonate with that life energy feeling and experience. And for listeners who We're talking about nervous systems who may just be beginning to understand their own nervous system or that their nervous system is important to things in their life. What are some of those baby steps of working with your own nervous system that
Mm,
they could try?
okay. The first place my mind goes is actually it's it's more of a deep dive than a baby step, but we can baby step into this.
Okay.
We can baby step into everything. So something that I, again, learned initially through my experience with chronic pain recovery, but it's
Mhm.
become such an important tool that I use to help myself with visibility and self
Mm.
expression when fear comes in is that when fear comes in, I know my first reflexive impulse, and probably that of most people listening, I would guess, is to view fear as an enemy and
Mm.
to view it as something I want to outrun or push through or fend off or trick it into getting into a closet and then locking the door on it,
Yeah.
right? And what I've learned is that what happens when I treat fear that way is very much analogous to what would happen if a really dear friend of mine came over to my house, knocked on the door, and entered and said, "Oh, I'm feeling really, really scared right now." And I was like, "Gotta go." Or you get in the closet and let me lock the door. Or, telling them off and telling, "Oh, can you just get over it? This is so annoying. I don't want to listen to this right now."
Mhm.
Right? If I treated a frightened friend that way, their fear would escalate really
Mm.
fast. And
Mhm.
they would either collapse into a ball and I'd have to take care of them, or they would get really angry and start yelling and screaming, or they'd, just get more and more frightened and things would escalate. And my day would be much more interrupted than it had been by the knock on the door.
Yeah.
If I take a different approach, which is how I, of course, would treat a friend, if I said, "Oh gosh, I am really busy, but like I have got 5 minutes for you. Like, come in, sit on the
Mm.
couch next to me. Like, do you want a cup of tea?" And whatever it is that's going on with you, I'm sure I can relate to it. It's so human to feel afraid. Like, this is normal. You're not weird or broken. And like, just tell me a little bit about what's going on and what you're feeling.
Mm.
And this friend is going to start to feel disarmed because they are going to feel safe in connection with me and with the
Mm.
empathy and presence that I'm offering them. And their guard is going to start coming down and to soften. And with it, the fear comes down, right?
Mhm.
So the thing I learned, again, initially through chronic pain recovery, which just quite literally blew my mind, is that my fear behaves just like a frightened person, as if it is its
Mm.
own person. And the
Mhm.
way that I interact with it will bring vastly different results depending on the approach that I take. So if I speak to my fear the way I was speaking to that friend just a moment ago, my own fear will start to let its guard down, and then it will connect with me, and we can actually become collaborators, because
Mm.
all fear is its energy. It is a
Mhm.
concentration of energy that has taken on a particular flavor, which is fear.
Mhm.
When that fear starts to come down, that energy becomes now available for creativity, for,
Mm.
any number of other generative things.
Mhm.
And so my baby step, because that's what you asked, is just to start practicing thinking about fear that way.
Oh.
Just to like visualize fear as like a big, blustery, frightened child
Mm. Mhm.
and notice just start there. Just notice what happens when you start to visualize or conceptualize fear in this new way.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Thank you for kind of breaking it down and is sharing kind of where it can go and taking it to that next level, but just that beginning piece of just noticing, being present.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
yeah, I love that reminder. Easy sounds easy, much harder than it actually sounds to be
Yes.
present with it.
Yes. And I've got tools for getting into this, but I think,
Yeah.
as a bite-sized first step, just kind of
Mm,
taking just considering even this
yeah.
concept.
I love it. Well, speaking of the child self and your own experience in childhood, what's your earliest memory of being creative?
Oh my gosh, my earliest memory, I'm like, wow, thanks for asking me that. I like, no one has asked me that maybe ever, but I haven't thought about it in a long time. But my earliest memory of being creative is playing with blocks alone in my room. I am an only child,
Oh,
so there weren't other, and we didn't live near family or like, and actually we lived in a building. I grew up in New York City in an apartment building, and the building we lived in was mostly inhabited by senior citizen older women for some reason. And so there weren't a lot of kids around to play with. So it was me in my room, and it was playing with blocks and little like Sesame Street figures and stuff like that. And I would like arrange them in these scenes on the floor in my bedroom.
I love that. I love and to know that you went into architecture and seeing the
Right?
building models piece that kind of
Yeah.
showed up again. That's so fantastic. How does the how does your kind of early childhood creative experience show up in your life today?
That's a really great question too. Certainly not in the same form. Like I'm not playing with blocks these days, and I'm not very engaged in like even like setting up my home
Oh.
space. That's kind of more like my husband's thing. He's a lot more into that than I am, which is surprising given that I started out in architecture.
Yeah.
My mom used to be a set designer.
Oh wow.
Um, you'd think I'd be more drawn that way, but for whatever reason, it seems that's not. I'm much more as a child, I spent a lot of time in my interior world, in my imagination,
Yeah.
and that is still a big, big part of who I am and how my
Mm.
creativity takes form as an adult. So my creativity takes place, I feel, largely in the realm of my imagination and coming up with ideas.
Mm.
I take long walks every day. That's my thing. That's my way of like getting into my groove. And I'll take these long walks, and on the long walks I'll be like, "Oh, what if I, you know, created this kind of a group or a program?" Oftentimes my creativity is feeding right into the work that I do.
Hmm.
Um or just like getting kind of caught into like a story, and then it sort of almost turns into a piece of writing in my mind, and I need to take out my phone and like write things down and then in the notes app. So it's oftentimes through imagining, through writing, and largely through journaling.
I love that. I love the imagination piece and that connection to childhood, but also adulthood and, holding on to that inspiration or the experience of being inspired or generating ideas in your life today. Who or what kind of inspires you the most?
Hmm. I think I think being outside in nature inspires
Mm,
me the most. And it's not that so I am very fortunate to be near the beach. I'm out in Rockaway Beach, New York,
mm,
which is where my mom grew up actually. And I take these long walks on the boardwalk looking at
Mm,
the ocean and the sky and the
mm,
sand and the plant life that forms out there. And it's not as though I'm then thinking like, oh, I'm like gonna write a story about the ocean
mhm,
necessarily, but it's just that being out in nature and visually looking at
mm,
like flowers or the ocean or the sky, and particularly like when I'm in a place like at the beach where I can see a vast expanse, where I can see the horizon. I know you talk a lot about how safety is a precondition for creativity. So that just, it settles the molecules in my
mm,
body. It just brings me into this state of expansiveness where then like my mind can just go into
mm.
creativity.
That's so beautiful. As you were sharing the little molecules kind of settling my own nervous system, I could feel it in my, like, oh, I know that experience. I know what that feels like.
Oh, sometimes get like literal shivers that go down my back when I see a
Mm.
beautiful, expansive sunset or like
Oh,
the ocean just spread out to,
yeah.
as far as my eyes can see.
Oh, so beautiful. Living in Colorado, I don't have an ocean, but I have it in my mind.
Yeah. But are there not like vast expanses of
Oh,
horizon that you
yes,
can see?
land and
Yeah.
mountains and all of that. But there is something, I don't know, growing up in the Pacific Northwest, the ocean experience, it hits differently.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, for me the ocean is my happy place.
Oh,
Right.
I love that. When you work with individuals on visibility and that coaching experience, I mean, can you take us through a little bit of that? Like, who are the people who are showing up to work
Yeah.
with you, and what is that experience of being seen?
Yes. Yeah, so oftentimes the folks that come to work with me, they're people who like they find some resonance in my story, and
Mm,
because of that, they often have certain threads of similarity with my story. They can we've got vastly different details in, plenty of areas, but oftentimes clients who come to work with me are maybe transitioning from some other career
mm,
into coaching, and some of them even more specifically into chronic pain coaching, which is what I've
mm,
most recently done.
mhm,
Um, some of them are creatives who have like a creative side business, but they are wanting it to become, to like go all in on it and make it their
mm,
primary pursuit. Sometimes they are folks who are, because those two examples are clients who are really wanting to expand a career in a direction that's more aligned with their passion or their interest.
mhm,
Um, Sometimes the clients who come to me are folks who are at a turning point in their life. Oftentimes it's like a midlife turning point because that's the place in life that I am.
mhm,
And they're wanting to move further into their creative expression. One recent
mm,
client came to me because she initially said she wanted to get into a writing practice. And what emerged was that she was actually already in a writing practice,
mm,
but she wanted to share her writing, and there
mm,
was fear around that. And
mhm,
she's deep into the process of publishing her first book now.
mm,
um another book, so another client with a book. So um I think what kind of the common thread that runs through everyone who comes to work with me, and I'm going to use language that sounds cliche because I just haven't found better words for this, but they want to move into a more authentic expression of themselves.
mhm, mhm,
And the work with me is a place to it's really a safe environment in which they
Mm.
can gradually let down the protections of whatever mask
Mm.
they've been going through life with. And we all have that experience, I think.
Hmm.
um, and they're wanting to be in a relationship, in a coaching relationship, where they feel safe enough to gradually let that mask come down and let a
Mm.
new, more authentic layer of themselves emerge and be seen,
Mm.
which I think we all in some way want that, our own version of that. Like, we want
Hmm.
to just be ourselves and not be wearing a mask and not be
Hmm.
twisting ourselves into some kind of people pleasing pretzel, whether it's in our home life or in our professional life or in our public life.
Yeah.
Um, but it's scary because we all have experiences that taught us that just being ourselves was going to get us into some kind of trouble. And so we
Mm.
twisted ourselves into people pleasing pretzels. And
Yeah.
the work of undoing that takes safety and support.
Absolutely. I love to hear that you do that work, the unraveling of that twisted
Yeah.
experience, because it's so needed and so amazing when we can come into that authentic self space. It's that work, finding your creative voice that I do. That, yeah.
Yeah. And, you were asking, I think, how does it often go? It can look a lot of different ways, but a theme that's very common is that a client will come to work with me and they're like, okay, I'm coming to work with a coach because I want to take action. I've got this project, this business, this creative project, whatever, that, and I want to get it out into the world, and I'm arriving, so I want to take action immediately. And
Hmm.
I certainly um encourage taking action steps right from the beginning, because that's what's going to bring up the material that we will work with. It's going to trigger fear, right? And very often, what starts out as like this urgency to act then gets caught up in this bottleneck. It's like, "Oh, I'm trying to act, but I'm trying to take action, but I feel stuck and I don't know
Mm.
why." And then what emerges is, so many times, there's some kind of visibility wound that's
Mm.
being triggered, some experience.
Hmm.
And it could be from any moment in life. Very often it's from childhood or like our
Hmm.
young adult years, but sometimes it's more recent than that, where we have an experience that we haven't fully processed when we took a step forward, like
Mm.
shared our voice, took up space, and then something really painful happened.
Mm.
Oftentimes it has to do with being socially rejected.
Hmm.
And so there's this association that gets formed on a nervous system level.
Mm.
Oftentimes it's not even conscious, but
Hmm.
it's just the way, like, how you might flinch if you see like a wasp flying
Mm.
near you, or
Hmm.
if your hand gets close to touching fire, you'll flinch and recoil.
Hmm.
You're not thinking about it. You're not like, oh, fire dangerous, must retreat. It's just automatic.
Yeah.
And it's similar when our nervous systems have formed these associations for the purpose of protecting us from future pain, right?
Hmm.
The nervous system can form an association between visibility, letting ourselves be
Mm.
seen and heard, with danger.
Mm.
So even when our conscious mind thinks, I want to step on stage and speak, I want to publish a book, I want to XYZ, the
Mm.
nervous system is doing that flinch and trying to keep us safe by holding
Yeah.
us back. So there's like an unpacking and healing that we need to do around those stories.
Mm. Thank you for breaking that down, because I think it oftentimes we aren't aware of those moments of recoil happening in that visible space. And it's and I think can often be explained away in like, oh, that's just middle school or that's just a high school thing and it'll get
Yes.
better, but not actually getting to the root of that and teasing it apart.
And I think actually like what you just said that we're not conscious of the recoil. I
Hmm.
think that is so so key. And I can share a little story about how
Please.
that has manifested in my own life. So I mentioned I had many different career periods. And for, about 15 years, I worked in media, first in publishing and then in
Hmm.
TV. So I was working as a creative for hire,
Hmm.
but I never really wanted to be a creative for hire. I wanted to be a creative, an author, a filmmaker, an auteur. I wanted to be putting my vision out there into
Mm.
the world. And I made many attempts to do that. And I
Mm.
had many promising false starts, and they all followed this sort of similar pattern. So I'll share just one as an example. When I was just about to transition out of publishing and into film and TV, I made a documentary. I wanted to become a filmmaker. So I thought, how do I do that? I'll just figure out how to make a documentary. And I made this very scrappy film about subway musicians in New York City.
Mm.
And because I was still working at a magazine at the time, I had all these press contacts, just from work. And I just scrounged them all together. And I was always receiving press releases from other people. So I knew how to write a press release. I knew the ones that I would throw away and the ones I would actually respond to. So I sent out this, I put on a screening at a really little, tiny little theater
Mhm.
downtown. I sent out this press blast, and I got all this incredible visibility through that. I got a full
Mm.
page write up in Time Out New York magazine, which was a very big deal at the time.
My goodness, yeah.
Amazing. I was invited to be a guest on a local but live New York City TV channel that was hosted by this NPR radio host,
Mm.
Brian Lehrer. And I, the most exciting one was I got interviewed on live radio by David Lee Roth, the Van Halen lead singer who had his own radio show at the time. I mean, it was incredible. What a promising start. After the screening happened, I Googled my name, of course, and the name of the film. And among all of this cool press that I had gotten, I found one um, very obscure personal blog where somebody had written just a scathing,
Mm.
basically like a personal attack. I
Oh.
think the fact that I had made a film triggered this person. They were probably someone who wanted to make a film and hadn't. I don't know, but it was just
Hmm.
so negative. And I read that. And then about 2 months later, it was as though I woke up from some kind of fugue state, looked in
Mm.
the rearview mirror, and was like, what happened? I was promoting this documentary and I was like sending it to festivals and stuff, and I'm not anymore. I don't know what happened. I guess that
Mm.
just never worked out for me. I guess that career path didn't work or that film didn't work. And what I didn't even recognize at the time is that when I read that nasty blog review, I recoiled and
Yeah.
contracted and went into a state of nervous system like freeze or collapse.
Hmm.
And, automatically stopped promoting the film. But I
Mm.
didn't even realize that. I didn't realize I was triggered. I didn't realize that I had stopped showing up for it because I
Hmm.
was triggered and because my nervous system was trying to keep me safe by going into hiding. I just was like blanked out on
Mm.
all of it.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, my
Yeah.
heart aches for that experience of I I feel like many of those moments in my own life and can
Yeah.
relate to that, and I'm sure listeners can as well. Just but the strength of recognizing where we have those moments and doing the work to untangle and reprocess and show up in new ways, brighter, bigger. more visible, more willing to be seen, even with the negative pieces from other people or challenges that other people are experiencing and projecting onto us. I mean,
Yeah,
whew,
the scary parts of visibility. I
yeah,
think the scary part of visibility is that being visible will inevitably, not always. I mean, I don't think this has to be like an all the time experience by any means, but at some
yeah.
point it's going to trigger someone else who
Mm-hmm.
probably has their own visibility fears. And so even
Sure.
just seeing another person be visible
Yeah,
triggers them. And, it's just kind of like they transfer their
absolutely.
fear like a hot potato.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me think of the subjectivity of creativity and art that, the many people believe art is subjective, but it is designed to ignite something in you that could be amazing and could be terrible and could be, it's all facets of an experience. So knowing that if you put something out there to be seen, it is going to have a multifaceted reaction and response from people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my goodness. This has been such a wonderful conversation, and I know it could go longer, but I have one last question for you.
Yeah.
What does it feel like in your body to be creative?
Uh, it feels like a river is moving through my body versus when I'm in contracted in fear, it feels like there's an iceberg locked inside my body. Being creative feels like there's a river and like there's light sparkling up and down that river, and I feel like shivers going down my spine.
Oh, it's beautiful. I love it. I relate and see the river and the sparkles. And thank you so much for taking the time to join me. If people want to learn more about the work that you do, the things you have out in the world, where to listen to your podcast, how could they go about doing
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking. If folks want to get really like a good taste of what this work with me looks like, they can actually take my free workshop, which is called Let Yourself Be Seen. And it's kind of a little like a metse platter of all of the visibility tools that I use, and I guide folks through it step by step. And you can watch that by going to annaholtzman.com/be seen. You can also come hang out with me on Instagram at Anna_Holtzman. And you can hang out with me on my podcast, which is called How to Trust Yourself.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, I will put links to all of those things in show notes so people have very easy access. And thank you so much for taking the time to join me. This has been such an incredible conversation.
Thank you so much. I felt the same. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.